So I would like to welcome and call to the stage Luc Julia. He's the Chief Scientific Officer of Renault Group France and co-creator of SIRI. And he's going to be interviewed by Charlotte G., news editor, MIT Technology Review. So give them a warm welcome.
Yes.
Your spot here?
Yeah, no, I'll grab this one, yeah. Okay, so yes, you co-created SIRI 3 decades ago. The dream was conversational AI. Have we achieved it? Does that now exist?
What? SIRI exists, you said? Sorry.
No, the idea behind was kind of conversational, to create conversational AI that you can have a seamless conversation with. Is that, do we have that?
SIRI is not conversational, right? So this is one of the issues. I mean, we dreamt at the time, that it was going to be conversational, but it was 30 years ago. And 30 years ago, we were not capable of doing something conversational. So we tried. The SIRI, the current SIRI, when you play with it, it's very similar to the one that was released in 2011. But in 2011, it was still, something where it's maybe one turn, right? So no conversational at all. So you were able to ask something, turn on the lights. Sometimes it was telling you which light.
Yeah.
So, and then you can, specify. But most of the time it was command and control, right? So call mom. It's a very, very simple thing.
Yeah.
So this is what SIRI was, and still is today. The nice thing is that with what they call Apple Intelligence, right, AI, they stole AI. So with that, they are a little bit late right now, but they are going to be able to do something that is more conversational. And I assume that in the next, maybe by the end of 2025, we will have a SIRI that is going to be a real conversational agent. So I think that it's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Is that Apple releasing further updates? Do you still have an little inside scoop? No?
Apple is a very secretive company, right? So when you are not part of it anymore, you are not part of it.
So there we go. The co-creator of SIRI doesn't get to know what's happening at Apple. It's that secretive. Yeah, I'm not surprised, I have to admit. When you look at, you were sort of saying that obviously with SIRI, you don't necessarily have the sort of level of back and forth, and now that's beginning to be more feasible. From a technological underpinning point of view, why is that? What's happened that means we can do that now? So,
again, we started SIRI in 1996, 1997, right? So almost 30 years ago. And 30 years ago, what you had, was basic, let's say, machine learning, right? And machine learning evolved a few years later, in 2010, 15, into deep learning. And then, about 5 years later, it evolved again into what is called now generative AI. It's pretty much the same thing, but with more and more data and more compute. And so at the time, 30 years ago, it was the very beginning of machine learning, and it was, not very good. We have to say it. So, and that's why, we kept this technology. Apple kept this technology until 2012, 2013, before moving to deep learning, where it was a little bit better, but not much better. But now, they have the opportunity because Gen AI allows to generate, as the name tells it. So it can generate, much more things, which in this case are going to be dialogues. So this is the opportunity is now, and it's going to be very interesting.
That's very interesting what you say, because if I understand correctly what you're saying, basically generative AI is not built on new techniques. It's built on speeding up and feeding more data. Yeah. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's why I'm fed up every time I hear that that Gen AI is a revolution.
Yeah.
It's not a revolution; it's an evolution. It's a revolution for the usage. Right. So it means that people were able to use it because of the prompt, And the prompt is actually an incredible revolution because it allows me, it allows everybody to use it, without any knowledge of anything, right? Just with the language. And the prompt is definitely a revolution. But the actual technology is not a revolution. The technology comes from, all the things that we learned in the past 30 years, even in the past 70 years, because AI really started, in the 50s. It started, by the way, with neural networks, back in 1956. And it died pretty soon, but it lasted for a while, and then it was logical AIs, and then in the 90s, the statistical AI came back, and this is what we called, at the time, machine learning. And what is interesting is that this machine learning came back just because, the statistical AI came back because of the internet. Because the internet came, with a lot of data. And so this big data allowed us to create those models that are going to be, modeling whatever. One of the very first models was a models of cats to recognize cats. It was very intelligent to recognize cats. Yeah. And why did we have a model of cats? Because on the internet, you were posting cats. And so we had the biggest database of cats. And not only it was a database of pictures of cats, but in addition to that, it was annotated. So you were saying, this is my kitty, this is my little cat, blah, blah, blah. And so we had the actual annotation of the biggest database of cats. And so we created a model of cats with only 100,000 images of cats. And so we created this model, and it was recognizing cats at 98%. Yeah, that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I wonder how many of those photos I'm responsible for. I wonder if we can talk a bit about voice, the kind of intersection between voice and AI. Why is voice such a powerful frontier? Why do we want to talk to computers so much?
I'm not sure that you want to talk to computer. Actually, SIRI in 1996-7 was actually talking to computers at the beginning. Didn't make a lot of sense, actually, because, usually the computer, specifically now, you are, in those places where you have a lot of people and you don't want to, just talk to your computer like that. But it made more sense a few years later to talk to your phone, because this is a natural thing to do. So, but to answer the question, of course, natural language, and this is the same story with the prompt, the fact that you are going to be able to express something without having to learn anything, because this is a natural way to address, the other people, then, it's very powerful. It's much more powerful than an API. What is an API? You need to be a computer scientist to use it, right? So that's why voice is very, very powerful. It's not appropriate for every situation. Again, I don't want to shout to my phone, in the metro, even though, you're all doing that.
Yeah, actually, now you mention it, we're seeing a bit of a sort of rush to try and build AI-specific devices, which is already producing some startups that are failing, others, who knows. What's wrong with just talking to your phone? Why do you think people think we need a device for AI and for talking to AI?
Because you don't have any other you don't have what we call the ubiquitous interface. A ubiquitous interface would be something that is not an interface. That, it's all around you and it's going to capture whatever you say, and it's going to react according to what you are saying. So we are not there yet. Personally, I hate phones because it's not practical. But the reality is that today, if I want to do something, I need a device in order to have this interface between me and the world, the digital world. So this is what we need today. But tomorrow, I really envision something that is going to be much more hidden, where again, the best interface is zero interface. So I can imagine being, in my, and this is not actually science fiction, this is really what happens in my home. In my home, I have 219 devices that are connected, IoT devices, Internet of Things. And those 219 devices, they actually are transparent because they are going to work together in order to achieve some goals that I have. So one of the goals that I have, for instance, is when I sit in front of the TV, it's going to turn on the TV and to turn on to the French channel, because I'm French, right? When my wife is going to sit in front of the TV, she's American, and so it's going to turn on to CNN, right? So, I mean, it's going to learn things. This one is very simple, but I have another one that is called the aperitif scene, that every night, you know, we are doing aperitif, we are French, and so when I come back home, you know, I have about 15, 17 different objects that are working together, that are orchestrated in order to prepare for the aperitif. And this is what I call ubiquitous interfaces, because you don't see it, you don't have to do anything. It's just because you're there, you are part of the interface. You are, you know, and so the gesture that you do, the speech that you can produce is going to help. But yourself, you are, you know, part of this thing.
I can see the logic of the home, because I mean, at home, no one can see you talking to your computer.
Yeah,
you know,
you still have people that can, you know, make fun of you. I mean, I remember my kids when they were little, you know, when I was speaking to the TV, they were saying, crazy.
I think, but it's interesting because obviously, I mean, I remember Google Glass and people calling people glass holes, and you know, now we have people with Meta Ray-Ban, stuff like this, and I mean, I can see the logic for us having another interface than a phone. I think a lot of people are starting to hate their phones these days. I don't think it's just you, but but what form that will take, I don't know. A pin, glasses,
yeah, the pin didn't
else.
work very well. I don't know if you remember the two devices that were out in January 2023 or 2024, 2024. I mean, they're dead.
They've gone bust. Yeah, I know. I mean, I think, but anyway, let's not get into that. I think there's a few reasons why.
The issue of those devices is that they were, again, I mean, a lot of my issues in general in technology is that people are claiming a lot of bullshit, right? And so we need to stop the bullshit. And I hope that here, you know, we are here to say it. And I want to talk about the talk that we saw before.
Please.
You know, and I think that we need to, unfortunately he's not here, it was by video, but we need to stop to claim that AGI, you know, is tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's pure bullshit. All the numbers that I saw on the slides, I don't know where they are coming from. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? Yeah. So we need to be very careful to just base things on facts. Okay? AI today is very interesting. It's a very good tool. It's a bunch of tools. If I have to define AI as one thing, I'm going to define it as a toolbox. A toolbox in which, you know, I'm going to have a lot of tools that are as different as a hammer, a screwdriver, a saw. They're all different. They are very specific. They are going to do tasks that are meant for what they were created for. But they are just tools. And at the end of the day, those tools, there is only one person, you know, who can use them. This is me. And I have the handle of the hammer in my hand. I decided to use it. I can use it the right way to drive the nail in the wall. I can use it the wrong way on your head, right? I decide. And we decide collectively what is good and what is wrong. But to decide collectively what is wrong and what is right, so what is called regulation, we need to educate ourselves. So we need to understand what those tools are going to do. In order, we shouldn't regulate before, you know, understanding what the tools are doing. This is exactly what the AI Act did. You know, they regulated before, which is totally stupid. You know, so we need to be careful. We need to educate ourselves. We need to understand that those tools, they are powerful. They can harm, but if they harm, it's because I decided to harm.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful message, and I think it's very important given the messaging that we keep receiving from Silicon Valley, where this is inevitable. Nothing is inevitable. It's just all the consequence of choices.
You know, I mean, 7 years ago, I think now, I wrote a book that was called "There is no such thing as AI." Right? And I was doing AI for 30 years. Right? So if I wrote a book like that, it's because I'm crazy or I wanted to say something. I wanted to say something, actually. I'm not totally crazy. The thing that I wanted to say was that there is no such thing as AI that is the AI of the movies. What I call the Hollywood AI. The Hollywood AI doesn't exist. Okay, so we need to, breathe, calm down a little bit, do a collective yoga, session, and just realize that AI is just, again, a bunch of tools. And what you see in Her or what you see in Terminator, it's science fiction. What you do when you do AI, and we have some people that are doing AI here, when you do AI, you do science.
Yes.
And you try to do something that is going to be useful for the real people, the thing that I call the real people, the people that I want to give tools to in order to achieve something better. There is one word that I heard this morning several times and that is very important. I actually don't call AI artificial intelligence anymore. I call that augmented intelligence because I am augmented in some of the tasks that I'm doing. I'm augmented by those tools. And by the way, I was listening again to this guy this morning, and he said that, AI is going to be smarter than us. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's for a long time that is the case.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm French, so you know that already. But I have an example of AI that comes from 1642. Year 1642.
Yes.
What happened in year 1642? It happens that Pascal, the French philosopher and mathematician, invented the Pascaline. The Pascaline was the first calculator to do addition and subtraction, 4 to 5 digits. So if I'm asking right now, how much is 1522 plus 735?
Does anyone want to have a crack at that? I can't see any willing volunteers.
Go ahead. So with the Pascaline, what happened is that this very addition, 5 seconds, I have the result. This machine was more intelligent than me. So the machines that we are building them as tools for something. We are building them for them to be useful. And by definition, a tool is useful. Okay? So artificial intelligences, because we need to put that in plural, they are better than us in every single domain that we decide we want to use them.
Yeah.
And this is, officially artificial intelligence started in 1956, but, I'm French, I started in 1642, but if I were Chinese, I would do that, with the, way before
I'm sure we could have a big global, I'm sure a lot of countries could start bringing claims.
In Greece, I'm sure that you can say, it started in minus whatever.
Yeah. I think why do you think that everyone is hyping up this
not everyone.
AGI?
I'm not hyping.
Well, you're not. Okay, but also Jan LeCun is not.
Let me answer the question. Why?
Yeah.
Because of money.
Because of fun to get
when
raise
you hear
funding.
Musk, my favorite guy right now, that is killing my country, not France, the other country, US. So Musk, bullshit over bullshit over bullshit. For years, everybody was, Musk, and now, they start to say, this guy is crazy. Yeah, this guy is totally crazy. So, but Musk is fine. Okay, that's fine. We got it. But Altman, Zuckerberg, what is it that they are doing? They just want to continue to get money for their stuff, and they promise things that is unachievable. Look at what was announced by Trump 2-3 weeks ago, So $500 billion, to do more and more data centers, which is good for some of you data centers.
Julia.
But $500 billion to create data centers is just for OpenAI at the end of the day. Because OpenAI said, I need that. And actually 1 year before, Altman was saying, I need 1.5 trillion, to build more and more things. So, those guys are in a race that doesn't make any sense. We should be in a race that is going to be more frugal. We should be realizing that those tools, we need to be careful. I'm not saying we shouldn't use them. I'm saying that we should use them when we understand them and when we are being careful about the planet in general, you know, because we have only one besides what the other jerk is saying. And so we need to be careful of this one. So.
I mean, I will say this for Sam Altman. He is very good at making people open their wallets. That is, I mean, that is a real...
And those guys are good. I mean, I'm not saying they are visionaries. I mean, I'm not going to say the opposite. They are visionaries. They did some incredible things. You know, this is the case of Musk because before, you know, he became totally crazy. But they are very interesting. But at the end of the day, we need to educate ourselves and we need to see that there are some things that do not make any sense, that we need to stop the race. And you know what? I mean, this is not the first time in history. It happens, you know, over and over again. I mean, it happened with the nuclear power. You know, back in the 60s, there was the race, you know, and after a while, the two big guys, you know, US and USSR, they said, oof, we need to be careful because we almost, you know, with the Cuba crisis, we almost, you know, killed the world. So they decided to sit down at the table and to negotiate. And in the 70s and 80s, we got the SALT agreement, which is a regulation of the nuclear power. I mean, this is what we need to do at one point. You know, we need to regulate, but we need to regulate after the facts and not before, like we did in.
But what's going to spark that? What's going to be the AI equivalent of the Cuban Missile Crisis? What would bring people to the table?
I mean, when things bad are going to happen. I mean, of course, this is when we are going to decide that, okay, we need to be careful. So, you know, I mean, I don't believe in regulation a priori before because we don't know what the AI can do. You know, we don't know what we can, the tools, the applications that we can have. The issue that when we regulate before, we regulate the granularity of the technology that is not at the right level. It's too big, you know, I mean, and there are applications inside this big bubble, you know, there are applications that are going to be interesting that we are going to forbid in the regulation. I think it's a big mistake to do that. So, but the reality is that sometimes issues are going to come up, and when the issue come up, then we can regulate because we are going to understand the issue. I mean, rarely we understand the issue before it comes, you know, in front of us.
Well, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because those harms, some of them may already be happening and we might not know. I mean, we already know that AI has been used, you know, in the Middle East. We know that it's been used in warfare, not autonomously deciding, but for the selection of targets, AI is already being used.
Of course.
So it's, I guess I wonder if we could stumble into a situation where, not because AI is sentient, because I agree, I don't think that's going to happen, but because we've chosen to use it for something that's very dangerous.
I mean, we know, for instance, you know, that in China it's being used for social scoring, you know, for the face recognition. We know that. So, of course, what we need to put in our rules is to say we don't want to do face recognition for social scoring. But we need to be careful not to say we want to forbid face recognition. Because face recognition, you know, is a big bubble, and the thing that is going to be the social scoring is one of them. Because face recognition, I can also use it for an handicapped people, you know, to open his door when he goes in front of it. So this is at the application level. So it means that it needs to be flexible. Because every time you have a new application, you need to change or to look at the jurisprudence and to see, you know, what is there. And it requires to be very flexible, very, you know, agile, which is not the forte of Brussels.
I wonder if we can talk briefly about DeepSeek. I mean, I think there's even more things still to come from various companies in China. I think it's just the beginning. So it seems like everyone basically saw DeepSeek's R1 reasoning model and then learnt whatever lesson they had already been saying from it. What lesson do you think we should learn from DeepSeek?
So first of all, I call it deep shit, but this is something else. But I mean, deep shit, you know, is very interesting because I mean, it was basically done on a frugal way. We don't know exactly because I mean, there are some parts, you know, that are not clear, but maybe $6 million to actually build the model. They did that by distillation. Distillation means okay. So up to you.
What did they distill from? Which model?
OpenAI.
OpenAI.
So they did
just from OpenAI.
They distill OpenAI.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is very ironic when you think about it, given what AI is. Where models are built.
But it's clever, and they didn't. After all, they didn't really cheat. They just used OpenAI, asking questions and getting the questions in the model.
Yeah.
This is what distillation is. It's a good idea, you know. They did the job, and now, you know, they have a model. So, but what is interesting in the model is not the distillation, actually, it's not the actual model itself. It's very good, it gives some very good answers. But what is very interesting is that it's open source à la Meta, which means that it's not totally open, but it's open source. And you can run it on machines that are a little bit, you know, smaller in terms of size and capacity. So that's definitely interesting because, as I said before, I believe that it's actually the way to go, you know, and to be a little bit more frugal. So that part is very interesting, and we learn that we can be clever, right? The thing is that, you know, I'm always a little bit nostalgic about what happened, you know, back 30, 40 years ago, when we had machines that were very constrained, right? I mean, we had to do stuff in very small memory and stuff, and we were just efficient. Now, you know, we have so much that, you know, we just use it without trying to be frugal, without trying to be, you know, to use less. And this is something that we need to learn from that. I mean, they used less, you know, because they don't have access or less access to some of the high-end processors and stuff like that. So that's very interesting for that. And they were just, I mean, the key word there is clever.
So yeah, actually, could we get the QR code up so that people could ask some questions? Because I'm certain that there's people in this audience that are going to have good questions looking at their faces. I think that, yeah, it's interesting what you say there about the efficiency point, because, and then, you know, we've just talked about $500 billion, you know, why do we need all of this money to progress in AI? I mean, people talk about frontier models. Do you think that there's sort of a mass delusion going on? I mean, I don't know. What do you believe is happening with that?
I mean, I don't know if we need it. I mean, what we need is to do something. You know, once we understand what we can do, what can be done, then we need to optimize. So I think that it's very interesting sometimes to push the envelope, you know, and to do something incredible. It's like going to the moon. It's interesting to go to the moon, but after that, what we learn, you know, by going to the moon, we learn some things that, you know, is back down to earth. So I think that it's good sometimes to do big, you know, things, but once we did it, try to be more efficient, you know, and to do that more frugal. So no, I'm not criticizing that we sometimes do too much, you know, but I'm just saying that once we learn that, we should try to optimize and to shrink it a little.
Well, and also the secret is that, like, AI is only going to be as good as adoption, because, you know, whether or not people are going to adopt some of these models is still a bit of an open question, because they still make big mistakes. So yeah, I guess that's an interesting one. Okay, we asked, some questions are starting to come through. I'm just like, are they better than my questions? Some of them probably are. Okay, we have a question here from Adrianos, which I'm not sure I completely understand this, but what do you think is the most important invention for AI? I don't know if, does that, is he in the audience? Oh yes, sorry. Adrianos, do you mean use of AI to invent something, or thing that... What allowed to AI? Right, got it. Okay, thanks for clarifying. Yeah, what paved the way for where we are now?
I mean, I think that, as I said before, you know, I don't use the word revolution in general, but I used it for the Gen AI and for the fact that we have the prompt, right? So this part, I really think that it's an incredible step towards something that is going to be more usable by everybody. I mean, it's a good thing that everybody can use it, and it's a bad thing that everybody can use it. Because you can do a lot of crap, you know, with this kind of thing. But you can do some incredible things too. So this is why the other word that is the key word there is education. We need to educate ourselves. We need to be sure that we understand what it is. I mean, we don't need to become, you know, the best prompter in the world, but we still need to doubt about the results of those things. So, but that said, I mean, I think that the prompt is something that is very, very, very interesting for the usage, for the usability of those AIs.
Did you know that speaking of prompts, I mean, it's interesting because people don't always know, what AI is going to be used for. Companies think they know, users know better. And DeepSeek, since it was launched, is being used massively in China for traditional fortune telling by young people. So it's like, I don't know, it's just really interesting to me to see, like, people think they know what things will happen. They don't, because human creativity comes to the fore and people do what they want to. Anyway, that's just me getting that off my chest.
No, actually, I want to rebound on that.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. We heard also this morning at one point, I don't remember who said that, that we need to be careful. It was the panel with the 4 guys there. We said that we need to be careful of the data because there is bias, in data, and we need to be very careful. Actually, what I'm saying is that we need to assume the bias. Because the reality is that whatever you do, and especially when you have a lot of data, like it's the case in those generative AI, I mean, remember, when you look at ChatGPT 4.0, it's 1,200 billion of parameters, right? It's pretty much the full internet. So the full internet is biased, right? 70% English, and it's basically, tilted towards the west coast of the US. And the data is pretty much whatever is inside. And so if you ask those AIs, the big guys, if you ask those AI, who invented aviation? Is going to answer, the Wright brothers in 1903, which is totally wrong. I'm French, you know that, right? I said, and I can tell you that it was Clément Ader, in 1890, 13 years before.
Yeah.
Okay? So what I'm claiming here is that we need to assume the bias. We need to create AIs that are going to answer the way I want to answer, right? So I want an AI that is going to answer Clément Ader. And I want an AI that is going to be African AI. I want an AI that is going to be Asian, not Chinese AI. Because, all those continents, they are basically wiped off, from the AI. It was already the case more or less with the internet, but with AI it's even worse. They don't exist. Africa doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So we need to be, we need to assume, we need to say, okay, yes, I'm going to create AIs that are biased and that are going to be, those AIs that are going to answer the right thing for the right cultural thing. This is a cultural battle that we need to have now with the AIs.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there are companies in Africa like Lipala that are trying to build, native AI from scratch speaking.
It's very difficult because a lot of the African culture, it's an oral culture, so it's not written. And when it's not written, by definition, you cannot build a model from that. So that's very difficult.
Yeah, it's just getting the training data, I guess. I'm kind of amused by you saying about the, trained on the internet thing, because the Shoggoth meme that some AI researchers have started sharing. It's like a monster, and it looks beautiful, but behind the scenes, it's terrifying. That's basically AI, is what they say, because it's built on such a mountain of just nonsense, Reddit posts.
Yeah, that's why, and that's why also, the way you ask the question is going to give you different answers. So you can get it to say whatever you want to say. If you want the AI to say that the Earth is flat, it will tell you that the Earth is flat. It depends the way you are going to ask the question. So because there are some flat, Earth people up there in the internet. So again, we need to understand what it is. We need to understand how it works. And since it's statistical, by definition, statistics, you don't know anything.
Yes, absolutely. This is why, when people say hallucination, it's all a hallucination. I've got a couple of SIRI-related questions that I want to get to, and I'm going to put them together into one question. One of them is, where did the name SIRI come from? I think we all want to know that. And then the next one is, if you could redesign SIRI from scratch, what would you change if you were building it now? So if you could do both of those.
From the very original idea, back in the 90s, I wouldn't change anything. because I mean the idea was actually pretty good, to try to have a conversation. We didn't succeed to do it technically, but it was the idea. So today, I mean, with the techniques that we have, we would be able to do those conversations, right now. There are more and more AIs that are doing also speech-to-speech, that are basically forgetting the text in the middle, and so you have you feel the real conversation, between those, between the human and the AI, and you can interrupt, you can do a lot of things that are much more natural. So today is the time to do that. Now the domains to which you are going to apply them. Back in the 90s, when we created SIRI, we had 35 different domains, when it was released in 2011, there were 5 domains. So, I mean, the original one was much richer, than the one that was released, because, I mean, the services that we had at the time, in the 35 services that we had, were something that were not acceptable by the lawyers of Apple. Okay, so that's why they didn't want to put all the services, and they wanted to control too, like they did with the map, which was a disaster.
Yes, yeah, yes, indeed. I have a question here from Tassos, which is, what is your realistic vision for the ultimate human-computer interaction?
I told you the ultimate human-computer interaction is no interface. This is what it is. The ultimate interface is no interface. So it means that this is ubiquitous computing, and so it means that all over the place there are sensors, there are stuff. I mean, of course, you need to sign up all the EULA that you want, but basically it just senses whatever you do, whenever you do it, and if you want it again, and it's going just to do stuff that you want. It's not going to read your mind, exactly, but it's going to look at your routine, learn them. I mean, a lot of things, that are actually pretty easy. And when I'm talking about my home again, I mean, this is what is happening. It's possible to do today.
So is privacy basically going to die? I mean, if I want my AI to be super locked down, not reveal any data, but your AI is like wide open, everything's welcome. How do we navigate that? How do we make sure that everyone's not just having all their kind of private stuff trampled all over?
Yeah, I mean, today it's complicated because today there is no standard between the different IoT, let's say, and the different pieces that you want to have on the sensors and stuff. So it's very, very complicated to create a system unless you are a wild guy like myself. But I assume that little by little it's going to come, and we'll have some devices that are going to learn, how people are behaving and what they like to do and stuff like that. And it's going to be, again, you shouldn't give to yourself the job of teaching those things. Those things have to get it naturally from you without saying anything. Sometimes, if, for instance, in my place, when I don't want aperitif, because I don't want aperitif, I can just say stop, and I decide. It knows that usually at 7 p.m., I'm getting aperitif, so it prepares the thing. But if I don't want to, I say stop, stops the thing. So, of course, you have always the way to decide, and you can command like that, but it will learn by itself also, what you want to do and how you behave usually.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing about the aperitifs. Surely that is the ultimate vision for all of us, for AI. I guess I'd really like to know a bit about, this is sort of a personal interest of mine. I mean, people are starting to form, I don't know if you can call them relationships, but they're starting to pour out their feelings to AI. AI is maybe being sycophantic back and listening to them and all of that and making them feel kind of heard. Is there a risk that people will become addicted to talking to AI?
Yeah, this is why you need, to have this education to explain that AI is AI. AI is not a person, So somebody also this morning said at one point that in Korea there are people that are getting crazy, and that fall in love with their AI, and it's pretty much the movie Her, right? And I mean, we need to make people understand that it doesn't go anywhere. Go ahead, but I mean, stop.
I mean, also, like Her, I feel like people forget this. Her is a dystopian film. Like it's a sad vision of the future. Not one that we necessarily.
It's very sad, actually. So that's why.
Yeah.
But there are people that are addicted to video games the same way, and they are just getting, in this world that they are building around themselves, and they dive into it and they die into it.
Yeah.
So. This is again a question of education, a question of doing what I was saying earlier.
Yeah. It's difficult. MIT just did a study into this, where they studied people's chatbot interactions, and they basically identified it's fine. Most people, they use it like a tool, but there is a small subset of people who will basically not abuse it, but they will overuse it, and they'll form too big an attachment. And I don't know how you weed that out, but it's coming. So.
Again, you need to take those people, and talk to them.
Get them to talk to each other. Meet up, go out for a coffee. Anyway, I will finish on a final question, which is kind of looking a bit into the future. And this is from Alexia, and it's about agentic, AI agents, whatever you want to call that. Is the technology there to support these kind of complex actions and tasks that we think it can take over?
Technology actually dates from the 80s. In the 80s, we had agents already. We had a lot of agents. They were architecture. One of them was called Corba, and it was an agent architecture. And there were plenty of them in the 80s and the 90s. But they were using the agents, the way we could use the agent at the time, which were, basic. They were doing basic tasks, and there was some kind of a coordinator, called that facilitator at the time, orchestrator, that was, taking all the different pieces, sending the different pieces to whatever agent, maybe sometimes, having competing agents, and coordinating all that. Again, it dates from 1988. Okay, so the actual architecture is there. Now, the good thing is that we have those new agents, the unitary agents, so the small guy, they're actually not that small. They can do something that are incredible. And this is where, it's very, very interesting, because if you ask, is it there? Yeah, it's ready, it's there. Now we need to work a little bit more on the coordination piece. And the coordination piece is going to be what people call reasoning, right? So to be able to call the right thing at the right time. This orchestration is going to be the most difficult part of the agentic AI. But every single agent, every single AI, is more and more powerful, and this is very interesting. So right now, what we were doing back in 1988, I mean, we could do it in a much more, powerful way, and that's pretty exciting actually, because the reality is that doing a monolithic thing is not the right thing. Doing something that is going to be very modular, when you can change the modules or when you can have the modules competing, this is very interesting, because this is life. This is what it is, in real life. So this is, I believe that agentic AI is very, very good.
This is exciting. And I want you to come and tell me how I can make me an aperitif. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for, unfortunately, but thank you. That was such an interesting conversation.